Good morning. Great to be back with everybody. I can't wait till the part where I can see everybody's faces and recognize some of the folks who helped me the last time we built a fire in the kitchen. And so this is really exciting for me to get to visit with y'all without having to get on a plane and have jet lag. So I love the traveling part, but it's really nice to be able to just walk out my back door and go to India. So thank you for that. This has been a real treat for me. So this morning we are going to, I guess for this evening for you guys, we're going to cook chicken. And one of my favorite cuts on the chicken is the chicken thigh. We feel like it's got so much flavor, and I just love it. It's so much fun to, you can do so many different things with it. You can cook it, and it just, the flavor in a chicken thigh is where it's got way more than a chicken breast. A lot of people talk about the nuggets and the white meat chicken breast. I love the thighs. I think there's so much more going on there. So what we've got here, and I went ahead and started this fire so that we would actually be able to have it hot hopefully by the time we got the rest of our prep done. But if you can see my grill here, I actually, there we go. So I have the fire on one half of the grill. On the back side over here, there's nothing else going on. This side is where my fire is built. And I've got charcoal and some actual pecan wood, which is a wood from the southern part of the U.S. Pecans are a fabulous nut. They're much sweeter and have a higher oil content than the do I feel like I'm a little washed out there? Let's see. Well, there we go. As it gets brighter out here, I can turn the light off. Pecans have a lot more sweetness to them than walnuts or almonds. And so incidentally, the actual tree, the smoke on it is very, very sweet. And it's great for barbecuing. It's great for, we do everything from ribs to butts to chickens, all just smoked 275 Fahrenheit, which I'm going to let y'all do the calculation in your head because I don't want to get that wrong. But low and slow. Actually, I've got my thermostat doesn't even have Celsius on it. Most of them do, but this guy does not. So you can see here on the fire front, and it's now we have actual flames coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and put my grill grate on here. And one of the great things about these gloves is that you can use them to cook with, but when you're barbecuing, everything turns your hand black. So they're great for just an extra layer of protection on that front. So we've got everything starting to get hot on this side. I've got a cooler side in the back. And I've got a lot of ingredients, including a praying mantis that just tried to join us. So we won't eat him. We will leave him alone. And so that is really heating up there. And so, and if y'all can, maybe Chef, you can tell me, so you guys are familiar with bell peppers possibly, maybe the green ones here. So we have different bell peppers, and we also have what we call a poblano, which is it's got a little more earthy taste to it. It's not as sweet. And the seeds of the poblano can be a little more spicy than regular bell peppers. So I've got some stuff I need to chop up here. Obviously the fire is really getting going here. So I'm going to go ahead and shut my lid, which will slow it down, and crack it to let a little smoke out. So this is a ceramic smoker. And the cool thing about these is that they're like a clay pot that are about this thick. So all the way around of course I'm trying to get out of the smoke a little bit myself. So all the way around the smoker, it will heat up and it will hold an even distribution of heat once it gets going. If you're cooking over the open fire, when you open it, of course we built a fire on one side, but the rest of this will heat up really well. I'm gonna get that grill hot. These are really cool tool that we use called grill grates, and the way it's built, it's got a flat side like this that this is, you know, not a necessary thing, but it's really neat what it does. So the heat from the flames will really absorb in this side, and then it basically points it like a laser from the other side. So these things will get so hot, and they leave incredible grill marks when you grill on them. So we're going to sear these vegetables on that real quick, and I'm trying to not breathe all the smoke if I can help it. All right. Whew. So I always like the part where you guys talk back, but I guess we're not going to get that right away this time. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up a couple of these. We got that flame going, and I'm just going to pull these off here. So what we're doing is, this is kind of a base that you can do a lot of different dishes with, but it's kind of the standard fare for Tex-Mex in the U.S. is basically these ingredients. So I'm going to cut these in half so they'll cook a little faster. And I may just use one of these poblanos. But you can see the poblanos have beautiful color to them. These little seeds are much spicier than the bell peppers. So I'm going to give it a quick touch of oil from my paper towel here. I'm just going to oil my grate real quick and try not to catch myself on fire as we do that. All right. So we'll give that just a second and let those simmer. Now, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get my skillet hot in the back. So we'll be roasting things here, and then we'll be kind of combining them all in the skillet in the back of the grill. So that's a cast iron skillet, and it will get really hot. One thing to remember when you pull a cast iron skillet out of the oven, a lot of times you set it down and then you go do some things, and then 2 minutes later you come back to move it, and you don't realize how much heat they retain. This thing will get super hot, and you'll need a hot pad for the next 5 to 10 minutes because it will stay super, super hot. So these, we're trying to get in my tongs. I'm not sure Marianne brought my tongs out, so I'm going to grab some tongs real quick because that's going to be very handy. And I will be right back with some tongs. Hold on a second. All right, got to have the right tools for the job. Thank y'all for your patience there. Here we go. All right, so now we're getting some heat on these. They're starting to blister up a little bit. And this is a great southwestern blend. And while that's happening, we're going to add all the spices together to make kind of what I would call the standard southwestern rub that I use. And of course, if you're trying to replicate this in India or in another country, you may want to take it a little more cumin, or you may want to put a little more paprika to please the palate of the people you're cooking for. But I'll kind of show you guys what I do, and I'm going to not measure precisely out here on the back porch, but we've got the recipe for you. You can be super precise, and then you can play with it and tweak it so that it matches both the style and maybe the flavor profile the overall style, but then the flavor profile that you feel like will be most pleasing to the people who are tasting it where you are. So I'm going to get my bowl here, and cilantro which is also the coriander plant, is a big part of what goes in that. So I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of cilantro in here. Our common paprika is just, it's mostly a color. It's not a ton of flavor, but it does give the meat a great color, and it's got a little bit of an earthy flavor. It is not the, it looks very similar to this label, by the way. I retreaded the label. This is
Kashmiri mirch. Oh, that is even we people have here in India. We use a lot Kashmiri mirch in making Indian recipes, Indian curry. So great, you are also using Kashmiri mirch.
I bought that when I was visiting you guys, and I'm just throwing a little bit of that in. It's kind of like our paprika, but with a kick. So,
so is that Chef? Is that an improvisation that you've done for this recipe today, or is that becoming a staple in your?
That's a customization I'm doing for you guys.
Oh.
So I don't have any cayenne pepper handy, so I've kind of popped that in instead. We do use some white pepper sometimes, and a lot of people hate white pepper, but I think it's when you smell it, it reminds me of a barn and like a hay barn with the horses. But then when as you add peppers, I always kind of compare it to a guitar solo versus guitar chord. So if you're playing one note on the guitar, you hear that one, but when you're adding multiple types of pepper to the dish, you get that, and it's the whole chord of flavor versus one screaming note. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That's a very interesting way to put it, I must say.
I hope you would agree with me, Chef. I don't, that's my own, I made that up. But there we go. So we got some good char on this. Boy, that is really charred. That one's good. That one's good. And the flame, you got to be careful when you talk, because you can talk so much your flames get out of control. So bump that back down. And we'll finish up here. So we're going to put some kosher salt in our rub, and cumin and cilantro are kind of the backbone of this rub. And cumin is just used across the board in all our Southwestern cooking here as a super, super heavy base.
So, Andy, cumin is also like used a lot in Mexican cuisine, Tex-Mex. People, they use a lot. So cumin is there. What else? What all other spices are also there? What they use in Tex-Mex cuisine?
So there's something called, and I'm sorry, the smoke is kind of getting me a little bit. Chili powder is another very, very common. Let me grab my spoon here. Yeah, the chili powder is a big one too. So I'm just going to kind of get this seasoned up, because we've got some chicken that needs to go on here pretty soon, and trying to keep an eye on time. Here we go. All right, so we got this guy coming off. Go ahead and blister those real quick. Now you can tell our grill is finally up to temperature. I lit it at exactly 7 o'clock. And one of the things I was going to show y'all, but I didn't want to wait, is the a neat way to use, instead of using lighter fluid, if you're lighting a grill, which has so much chemicals and flavor in it, I take some fat from like bacon grease or other animal fat that's in the fridge, and I wrap it in a paper towel, light the paper towel, and put the charcoal on top of that, and it's amazing. It lights super fast, and it's all natural, and it doesn't smell up. It doesn't, it doesn't leave any chemical, petroleum, like lighter fluid inside your grill. So this grill, you can tell it's at 400 degrees. If somebody wants to do the Celsius translation on that, I think that's It may be like 250 Celsius, and it's climbing a little bit. So I'm going to shut the bottom of the grill has an air vent. I'm going to close that down, and that will help regulate this temperature a little bit so we don't get too hot too fast. All right. Let's see here.
So basically, Chef Andy, like you said, you can control the temperature by keeping the vent of this equipment open and closed by keeping it. So you can control the temperature.
Exactly. So the air at the top and the air at the bottom are really the control valves for how hot it gets. Obviously, it also matters how big your fire is. So if I had put charcoal all the way across the whole thing, the fire would have been much bigger and would have created a much bigger burn. I just realized I left my onions unchopped, untouched too, so I'm going to flip those out. All right, so let's do some chicken. How about it? So I've got our rub over here, and I have 4 bone-in chicken thighs here, and you can do this in a pan. You can do it outside on the grill. These things, you can see maybe the amount of fat they have on them.
Yes,
they
nice.
are fat.
A lot of fat. A lot of fat it has. Definitely, this will give the juicy flavor also to the chicken.
Yeah, so there's going to be so much flavor on these things, and I'm just going to put a glove on because I have all those peppers, and because I'm about to touch some chicken, and we're going to flavor these things up with some of this rub. And you can see that the green pieces in the rub, that is cilantro. And some of that I will dust on here at the very end, right before we come out of the pan onto your plate. I will add a little more of this cilantro flakes. We also have some very sad cilantro plant back here that right now our grocery stores are not having all of the greatest ingredients. And cilantro is something we actually grew in our garden for a while. The early part of the pandemic, it grows really well here, but then it got too hot. And so now we have some coriander seeds from our yard, but we're out of fresh cilantro in our own yard. So the grill is at 450. That is plenty hot. You can see the grill marks from those grates.
Yeah, very nice.
You're putting some protein on there. It's really good too. I'm gonna pull these guys off, and I'm gonna go ahead and give some chicken. Whew. I wasn't sure how the smoke coming off and how being able to talk to y'all and be able to see what I was doing was all going to work together. But I feel like we're making it happen.
So, Chef Andy, tell us one thing. If we marinate this chicken prior, in sense 3-4 hours prior, we keep it in the refrigerator, so it will enhance more flavor.
Say that one more time. Would you marinate it for ahead of time? I didn't quite understand the question.
Wait, I'm sorry. I think we lost Chef Sumit's audio, but what I think he was trying to ask was that, obviously the clear difference between a marinade and a rub is the acidity that the marinade brings with it when you add vinegar or oil. So what would be the primary reason for using a rub a few seconds before versus a marinade that obviously could, you could leave over for a couple of hours?
I sometimes, and I'm going to shut this. Maybe I'll get a little less smoke in my face. For me, sometimes we have last minute things that we don't know how much we need. sometimes if you season these things and leave them overnight, or even a few hours, some of the peppers flavors get so strong that it will get really, really spicy. Whereas this can be done kind of on the fly and very quickly. Now, we have done several things where you season it overnight and let it go. But this is something that we just, it's quick and ready and on the fly. Let me get my coffee delivery here. Thank you.
Very, very important part of the recipe.
She brought some garlic. That's on the recipe, and coffee for me. That is, I was actually laying in bed this morning thinking about this, and I thought, what else other than the cooking part should we really talk about? I don't know why, but it kind of stuck with me. There's a lot of things culturally going on in America right now and other places that you may have heard about. And I think one of the important things, and Arjun, I think you and I talked about this Thursday, was just how we interact with other people and how we encourage other people. And a lot of you're going to run across a lot of people different than you, that look different, talk different. Maybe they talk like an American from the South. Maybe they talk like they're from Thailand or Asia or Sweden or somewhere. And maybe they look completely different. But we all should show love and kindness to one another, regardless of whether it's the busboy, the dishwasher, or the guy who's writing the $1 million check for your restaurant. So I think that golden rule of showing kindness to everyone was something I wanted to make sure and say, because I know sometimes the restaurant industry can be really rough.
Absolutely. No, I think you're right, Chef. And as they say that, you don't reach in the top by, wow. I'm sorry. That is certainly a wonderful view.
And even Chef Andy, I have seen your Facebook page also yesterday where you have shared coffee rub recipe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So share with us that new marination for the chicken, even the coffee rub, that will be again, that's how it comes in sense, how we can go with it.
Yeah, a friend of mine has a coffee company, and we love putting coffee in rubs, and so I like to incorporate that in there. And these, by the way, you can tell they're cooked. They're not super soft yet, but they've got some of that smoke on them. They got a little crunch, but they'll be perfect for just dropping in that skillet with the chicken right at the last minute here. So the coffee rub is another fun way to incorporate. You can do ground like espresso, super fine, or you can do a medium grind. We do a lot of so we did a steak that day, but you can actually use a coffee rub on chicken if you want, or pork. It's great on like a pork chop. So I think there's a lot of ingredients that if you start to play with them and you start to get whimsical and creative, and just know that there's a lot of rules in culinary that are there, and they're great. But then at some point, once you know how fast the car can go and how fast it can take a turn, sometimes it's fun to kind of go a little faster and a little wild around the edges. Now, don't y'all do what your instructors are telling you, but it's fun to push boundaries and create things and do things that haven't been done before. And honestly, a lot of my training has been in chefs' kitchens where I ask why, Why do you do this? Why do you do this? Why don't you, and sometimes they have a great answer and sometimes they don't. And so I like finding out the reason behind the reason. And by the way, when you're doing poblanos, it's great I like to leave a few of these peppers, flakes in there, the seeds, because that adds some flavor. But if you put all of them in there, it might be too spicy for some people. All right, let's check on our chicken. So this chicken has a little bit of work to do, but you can see the coloring. It's really, it's coming together really nicely. And I think we'll probably, this time we have here, 7:38. All right, we got about 20 minutes. We're gonna have to get moving on this. So we're going to incorporate the peppers and the onions. Sorry, I keep trying to figure out where the camera is. We'll put the peppers and the onions. We've got some garlic that I'm gonna mince up and throw that in towards the end, because if you put it in early, sometimes the garlic can burn or get kind of lost in there. So I'm gonna throw a couple of cloves of garlic in there. We're gonna throw all the vegetables in the skillet. Saute them down a little bit. Sorry, the smoke it's just finding me wherever I go. That's kind of funny. So we'll saute all that down, and then the chicken is not going to be all done on that little grill thing. So we'll actually I'll pull it off and kind of shred it into that skillet and get it cooked down. We'll add the vegetables at the end because they're already kind of par-baked, if you will. And then what you can do with this is you can go a lot of different directions, from making like tacos to you can roll it up in like a big burrito. You can do there's a number of different ways you can basically take this dish and stretch it in other directions. And Chef Mariana had all of that on that PDF. Do you happen to remember the last 4 things it said on that page? Because I'm struggling.
Chef Sumit, can you open up the recipe card that Chef Andy had sent to everyone?
Yes.
And what Chef Andy wants to know is he wants to know the last 4 things listed in that.
There were a couple other ways she said you could use this. And I'm drawing a blank right now. I don't know if it's, the smoke finally cleared. It's going the other way. That's better. All right. So I think she said like breakfast enchiladas was another one that she liked.
I'll just put it up. No worries. All right. So yeah, she said breakfast burritos, tacos, or nacho bar. Nachos, main dish, or tacos.
There you go. Okay. All right. So now the main event is in the skillet, and we're going to finish this chicken by shredding it out and hopefully not burning myself. But we're going to let that fat render out a little bit more, and then we'll add our veggies back in there. I'll go ahead and finish getting these ready. And so yeah, a big part of what we do with Tex-Mex food here is nachos. Nachos are as an appetizer or an entree is super big, and people will pay $12, $15, $18, depending on what proteins you put on nachos as a main dish. And so it's amazing that you can basically take some corn chips and a handful of cheese, some seasoning, and turn it into at least probably a $12 dish. But depending on what sort of proteins you throw on there, you can go up to $16, $18. If you add like shrimp or crab meat, things like that, that would bring you up to that premium, kind of that premium desirable price point. So it's super simple ingredients, but you can actually do a lot of presentation with nachos. You can get really creative with colors. You can build up, and this is kind of your this is kind of what we call a primer coat. It's a great base layer to start with. Man, if I could make the smoke go exactly where I wanted it to, this would be that would be really impressive. But we'll see, the wind's picking up. It looks like it's about to go that way. So that's good. We're going to check this chicken now. You can see it's really rendering out a lot now. I don't know if y'all just saw my cat. She adopted us about 4.5 years ago, and the sprinklers just came on in the yard. But don't worry, we're not in the yard, so we're good to go there. So I've got all my onions and bell peppers ready to go there for when we add those in. Just need to do a little garlic real quick, and we will basically have this chicken shredded out. We'll pop the rest of this together, a quick stir, and then I like to take some coarse chopped cilantro right at the end and drop it in there, and kind of give it a little bit of brightness. And then we'll also take some lime juice, and I usually cut a lime in half and squeeze, give it a lot of acid to balance out, because these are really fatty, healthy chicken. And so that cilantro, that lime actually balances that out really well. And then another thing we do with this is we'll use, this is a brand we use, but just sour cream. So when we build a breakfast taco, and I've actually, you could do this for dinner, but I've actually told a friend of mine that I was going to be cooking all this, and he's going to be over here about 9:30 to actually eat what I did this morning, because we don't want to waste this beautiful food we're working with. So we're going to make it actually into a breakfast taco. Like you can see here, we got the meat really starting to break down. It's cooked all the way through, but it's not quite to the point where it's falling off the bone, that's what Southern barbecue is. It's basically you're getting it to that fall off the bone level. So this is pretty close, but it's not all the way. We'll just get our garlic done here. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask kind of while we're finishing this up? And I'm peeling my garlic carefully and trying to keep an eye on everything smoke-wise.
Yeah,
So,
if you have
Chef
any
Andy?
questions, please put them up in the chat box.
Chef Andy, you are expert in grilling actually, and tell us one thing. Sometimes when we grill, the chicken pieces or any meat, actually it becomes black in color. Why generally in sense it happens?
So why does it look black when
Yeah,
when
black,
you're
and that is uncooked in sense. So I think that is because of the grills are not heated properly or something.
So if it's turning black, that's usually a too much. Well, I take that back. So if you're cooking like a Boston butt,
Yes.
or like a brisket, which is a big thing in Texas, huge in Texas, you cook those for 10 hours, and the smoke I mean, sometimes more than 10 hours. Some people cook them 18 hours, but a lot of times mine take about 10 hours. A lot of times the smoke will actually turn it black. But it's, it's not burned. It's just actually darker and darker and darker from the charcoal and the wood that's burning in there. And a lot of times that wood is, pecan, mesquite, oak, hickory, or a combination of all of those. And so when you get, when you spend 10 hours with oak or hickory or pecan smoke, it'll leave a mark on you. And so we have what's called the smoke ring on barbecue, and you can usually see it. The outside will be, so it'll kind of be around. The outside will be one layer of black, and then it goes pink in the middle. And that pink to black is called the smoke ring. And you'll find that on a lot of barbecue. All right, let's see how our chickens are doing. Oh, yeah. So Mariana got me the bone-in chicken thighs here. And so that's going to give you even more flavor than the regulars. And we are, oh yeah, we're just about ready here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some vegetables in here and put my.
All right, Chef Sumit, I think there are some questions from the students. If you could kindly open the chat box and pass them over to Chef Andy, maybe he can answer them as well.
Right. So, Chef Andy, what is the temperature to handle barbecue? So that is from the student, one of the student.
That's a great question. So barbecue, typically now grilling and barbecue in our dialect here are two different things. And I may bump this up just a little bit because I'm leaning down. Here we go. So grilling is when you're cooking on fire, and you grill a steak, you can grill a chicken, but barbecue is by default what we call slow and low. And so if I'm smoking a chicken, it's going to be at 225 to 275 for 4 hours. I can grill a chicken, I can spatchcock it and grill it in 45 minutes at 400 degrees, but smoking is a longer process. So it's actually a science where you want the flavor to be controlled and pushed out slowly through the smoke and the heat. A lot of times it's you're called indirect. You're not directly over the flames. But so I'm kind of mixing in this. We were at 350, 400 degrees, and I was mixing actual pecan wood, which is creating some smoke, but we're doing this in a hurry. We're not spending 4 hours on this chicken. So we're adding basically a kiss of smoke from the wood, but we're going pretty quickly into the pan. And I love that the sprinklers cut off. I forgot that this happened at this time. So anyhow, I hope that answers the question. So it varies, but a lot of times people will barbecue meats from about 225 Fahrenheit to 275. That's kind of the sweet spot. And you cook it slow and low until it falls apart. And a lot of those, you cook barbecue for a lot of the cuts of meat that are typically very tough, and that takes some time, but it's creating value. You're adding value back to a piece of the animal that was not very revered in many cases. All right, let's check on our mixture here. You can see the color we have going on here. So we're just going to shred our chicken off a little bit at a time without burning ourselves over this fire, which is 450 degrees. Do y'all have another question while I'm doing this?
Sorry, I left myself muted. There's a question by one of our co-faculty members. Chef Saurabh asks, how do you avoid dry rub from burning while cooking on a grill? So is it easy for a dry rub to get burnt a lot quicker than a wet marinade? And if so, how do you avoid it? How do you prevent it from burning?
So it will burn on there somewhat, for
Okay.
sure.
So that's
And
different.
that's part of what's going to happen. And that's part of the flavor profile that you're getting. Is you're getting that rub, not as it tastes raw, but basically as it tastes adhered. A lot of our rubs have, for barbecue, for instance, somebody was mentioning the one that I did with the coffee in it. We have coffee in it. We also had brown sugar, which is, basically white sugar and molasses combined. But the sugars in that rub, when you put that on the piece of meat and sear it in a skillet or even on a grill, they caramelize and they create another flavor that wasn't there. So it's almost like you're getting the top of a creme brulee as far as you're getting a little bit of a crust from that sugar. So people say, why are you putting sugar in a rub? I don't want a sweet piece of barbecue like that. But the sugar actually will create a crust on there and will be great it also helps to act as a glue and bind the peppercorns and the salt flakes and the other chili powders and things and hold it all together on the meat as opposed to it falling off the grill or something else.
Okay.
Somebody just asked about bitter taste in barbecue. I love that question. If your barbecue tastes bitter, it's because you're on the wrong kind of wood. And I had some different flavored barbecue or smoked meats there, and it 100% has to do with what you're cooking on as far as wood goes. So if you were to take an old tire and smoke a chicken over an old tire versus taking some apple or peach or pecan wood, one of them's going to be bitter and oily and gross, and one of them's going to have all these delightful nutty flavors. And so and I think I just rubbed my eye with some cayenne. So that'll be exciting for all of us as we can cut that video out and put it in slow-mo right as the moment when I touch my eye. But I think that's a great question too. What other questions do we have? I'm going to check.
We had one question right at the beginning, which student said, which part of the chicken did you use in the barbecue? I think you covered it, but if you just want to go over that.
Yeah, this was the thigh, and it's got a bone in the thigh too. So it's
thigh piece. All right, lovely.
So, Chef Andy, tell us a little more about, because we are talking about grilling. So generally, the beef steaks are people they like a lot. So about the cooking point of the beef steaks.
What kind of steak do you say?
So basically, for example, the rare and then the medium rare people.
Yeah. Sorry.
So,
so when we cook steaks here, these grill grates that I showed you guys earlier, I'll just leave this right here, that left the marks on it. So important in steak, I think, to have to put a good solid color and crust on it. And we like to cook if we're doing a steak, we do it to medium rare. I try to do a diamond pattern on there, so I sear it and then turn it at a 45 degree after about a minute, and then flip it and then turn it another 45 degrees. So we have that grid that's not square, but it's angled. I jokingly say that give her what she really wants, diamonds. And Uday says applewood can work for grilling or not. Yes, applewood it's a lighter flavor. It was centered in the table, And so there's not quite enough room on either side of it. If it had been offset, you would have had a full, you could put 2 sheet pans on the other side. But the way they did it, not. Okay, so I just moved that where y'all can't see it. So I'll tip this down a little bit. All right, so we've got the chicken basically falling off the bone here. We've got all the vegetables, and now we're about to get down to the main event, which is doing quick sear on this. So I just gotta have a flour tortilla and literally just a quick kiss on the grill here. We've got a beautiful plate designed just for this dish. Look at that. We get a quick color on it. We're not trying to really do anything other than just warm it up slightly. And we'll go a little sour cream in the middle. We'll get a couple of pieces of our cilantro here. And this is made a little more interesting by not having access to a sink. So cooking outside. Let's see. Did we suddenly connect? Hold on one second, guys. I'm sorry. All right. Did we have an audio issue there?
Yes,
I'm not
we
sure.
did, Chef. I'm afraid so, but it's fine now. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to take, and this probably needed to cook just a little bit more. This should basically be shredding itself a little easier, but you kind of get the idea. So you're going to have these little fine pieces of chicken with color on them. Super smoky flavor, but also you've got these beautiful vegetables in here. And we're just gonna, we put a little bed of sour cream down there. And we've got the chicken, got the vegetables. Also the grill is continuing to be hotter and hotter. When you leave a grill open, it will continue to heat up because it's getting that air. And so it's just gonna keep going. So this, so you can take basically your chicken, your vegetables, your cilantro, your sour cream, and then one of my friends likes to do it this way. You roll up the, I really wish I could do it with the grill up. Let's see. Here. He likes to just roll it up like a big, and so then you've got this beautiful, you've got your marks on it. You got the barbecue chicken in the inside. You got all the flavor from that. There's some sour cream. One thing I did leave out is the lime, and you definitely want to cut the lime in half and squeeze it in the dish right as it's finishing, because some of the oils from the skin of the lime will squeeze out along with the actual juice from the lime, and that will be that'll be a great combo right there to get all that lime and everything in the dish. And I'm going to go ahead with you guys' permission. I'm going to go ahead and take a bite and see how we do.
Now that's the most important part of the job. You can't leave that bit out.
I think we did good.
Yeah,
Yep.
I knew this would happen. I knew this would happen. We'd be at the end of the cooking and we'd probably ask you, how does it taste?
Well, I wish I could share it with all of you, and I think I mentioned this when I was there. But anybody who does happen to get to New Orleans or Mississippi or whatever, please look me up. We'd love to have you over for a meal and share some food with you. And
Oh, it'd be
and
great. It'd be a
you-
pleasure and an honor. We have a question here, Chef, very quickly. Student wants to know, what is your take on bringing the thighs and then grilling it, cooking it and cooking the veggies separately? Would it help in the juiciness of the protein?
doing like grilling the thighs separately.
If you want to have a quick look at the chat box, you'll probably be able to see the question.
Okay,
If you
hold
can.
on. Oh, there's a lot of good chats. Okay. Hello, Chef. What is your take on brining the thighs and then grilling? I think brining would do more. Now look, here's one thing that may make a difference. This chicken is this is a U.S. farm raised chicken, so it's got a lot more fat in it than some chickens that I had in India that was just regular. So I don't usually worry about the juiciness of the meat because there's just so much good fat and flavor in it that I'm not really that concerned about it. Especially these have the fat. So you could, but there's so much going on here with these. I mean, this is the skin. Here, let me hold this up. I did that wrong. I should have used my glove hand. This is still the fat render. I mean, this is one thigh fat right here. There's still a lot of fat rendering out. So keep worrying about it being juicy is really not an issue with this particular meat and this particular dish. There's tons of fat in here, and I put probably a teaspoon, tablespoon of oil in the pan just so nothing would stick to it before it started rendering out. Let's see let me look at what other chat questions we have. Sorry about my finger being up here. Which wood, bitter, what is temperature?
I think you've got most of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Good.
Just trying to think if there's anything else that this basically is a method that you can do. You can put this on top of chips with some cheese. A lot of times we will throw like a shredded cheese blend on top of this. My grill decided to start smoking again. So sometimes we will put cheese with this. We'll do sour cream. We'll do lime squeezed on there. Sometimes we serve it with a lime wedge that people will then add a little bit of acid to it right before they eat. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. You can take it super spicy for people who want to melt their face off. This dish can get really spicy if you add, this particular pepper blend we work with, but it's got serrano, habanero, jalapeno, Thai chili, and long hot cayenne all in one. That's a great way to slowly build up that chord of flavor. It's not just one single note. It's a lot of different flavors going hotter and hotter. So that's another thing you can do with this is just bring the heat level up, and it gets a little more exciting.
All right, wonderful. Chef Sumit, any questions from your end?
Great, sir. It's a wonderful dish prepared by Chef Andy, and then the techniques of the grill is really important in sense. So we have seen how to maintain the temperature, all that. So great. It's lovely watching Chef Andy cooking, grilling the chicken.
All right, Chef, we have one more question from a student. Would you recommend making chimichangas with this chicken mix, and would it be moist the way it happens to brisket chimis as well?
I think you could do it exactly like this. Yes, think it'd be just as good. Matter of fact, I endorse that. I recommend that. Cheers.
All right, there you have it. Students, are there any other questions for Chef Andy before we give this session a wrap? If you have any questions, kindly put them up in the chat box right now. We'll ask them for you, and I'm sure Chef Andy will be happy to answer.
I want to remind you guys, if you go follow us on Instagram at Let's Eat Y'all. I think Arjun has has my WhatsApp. If anybody has questions or wants to follow up, please share all that information. I'd love to keep connected with you guys. All over the world.
I'll share. Mariana had sent all the social media handles with me. I'll share it with the students as soon as possible as well. Now, I totally recommend students, please do make sure to follow Chef Andy and Mariana. The work that they're doing is phenomenal. For those who tuned in for our conversation on Thursday, as well as when you look up the work that Eat Y'all is doing, Let's Eat Y'all is doing to connect farmers with consumers as well as chefs, is quite inspirational, and particularly the need of the hour in today's scenario. So excellent job there, Chef. I certainly hope and pray that you get more strength and more power to you, because one day I certainly see a global reach for your kind of efforts.
Well, thank you so much. We enjoyed so much working with you guys, and look forward to seeing everybody in person, and having some more dal or whatever it is, whatever your heart desires to feed us. We can't wait to get back to India and see you guys and eat everything again, because that was such a good time we had, and
it was a great time, and it was very spontaneous, wasn't it? I mean, it was just one. I remember meeting you at a hotel at that function, and then instantaneously, I think overnight, we just planned the class the next morning.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, I think we were at the Oberoi, and then
at the Oberoi, and then we quickly chatted.
Hours later, yeah, there we are.
No, we were very lucky to have you and Mariana, and I want to extend my thanks to her, because I know she's been responsible for all the back end support.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you see how that works. She also can deliver coffee and everything else. We couldn't do it without her.
Yes, absolutely. So wonderful. But I hope that you stay safe and stay happy, and a lot of more strength to you and the entire team at Eat Y'all. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal. Lovely interacting with you over the last few days, on Thursday as well as today. And I'm sure on behalf of all of the students, we've taken back a lot from today's session. It was a small capsule, but I think you've covered so much in such a short time, which is actually how your flair. And I must thank you for getting up this early. And students, if it hasn't been noted already, it's 7 in the morning, or now it must be 8. But it's way early in the morning to be cooking a grill. So, but that speaks volumes about a chef who's so passionate that I'm sure takes a lot of preparation. So thanks a lot for that once again.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great
All right. Thanks a lot, Chef. I'll be sending this link to you very shortly, and speak to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Chef Andy.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.